Thank you. Hello everybody, my name is Craig Bennett, and today I am going to be answering a question with a detailed answer. This one's going to be a bit of a longer video because there's a lot of things that can cause this. Not normally not in this short period of time, but I'm going to get to extremes to not so much, because keep in mind I got a background in space, so some of the things that you'll see in space would actually cause degradation in where you wouldn't down here on Earth. So I might as well throw some of that in, just 2 or 3 extra bits. But this comes from Flamer Gamer. It is how to prevent performance downhill over a period of time, and them getting a little bit more into it. They're talking about their laptop has had a large performance drop within a year. And basically the big thing I want to point out is this could be wide, but it could be it can happen on a lot of devices. It's like the devices that this wouldn't really apply to is something like a microwave, a coffee pot, a traditional fridge with an alarm, something of that nature. But things like smartphones, tablets, some smart TVs, some set-top, in fact a lot of set-top boxes, especially with DVRs, the base, maybe smart cards. I don't have no experience with cars to really say with that, but assuming with these newer ones that allows you download applications, it actually would apply then. A lot of instances where it would, in fact more instances where it would. So let's get down to narrow it down. So what we have is 2 categories. You got hardware and you got software that can cause, and then there's subcategories where with the hardware you got the resources, and it goes the same thing with the software. You got resources and you got degradation. With the software, it is operating system and applications. So both of them have 2 separate subcategories, but you got two categories to start with. So the biggest thing that you'll find is resources. And what it would be is whether it is operating system level or just application level, is there can be resource problems. Given that this person is talking about a laptop, I highly doubt it is a operating system level for resources. I've seen with phones when smartphones first came out. Check out, in fact, it's pretty cool. Check out this phone called Motorola Ming. It was a touch interface with a clear. It was back when they had flip phones, but the flip portion of it was actually clear. And I had to import it from China when I got it. It's a long time ago, and I think it was before Android came out. But anyways, basically, the operating system was crap. Then the phone itself looked like it was going to be pretty cool, but the operating system was crap, and I've seen it with prior phones even worse, where the operating system would be a system hog in itself, and because they didn't put enough resources. So this would actually go into more of the hardware section, because the resources, hardware resources, was not good enough. The operating system was causing problems to begin with. So for instance, you'll run you'll get a spec sheet when you're dealing with software, and if like for the operating system stuff is you're just at or slightly above, but normally just at the operating system on its minimum, then you will run into some problems. But if it goes beyond that, like much beyond that, like you normally would, like with Windows, the 64 bits, it's I don't know, I think it's 4 gigs. It's been a long day. 4 gigs and of RAM, and I don't know the how much hard drive space they have, but if you got at a minimum, it wouldn't take much to cause problems. So with that, the fix of that is simply upgrade the stuff. Obviously, it's a laptop in this case, so we wouldn't really run into that. So I wouldn't even really look into that. But the applications, so say you're working with the application side, so maybe Camtasia Studio or Adobe Suite or whatever it may be. If you have to use that for work or school or whatever, or like a game, then you might meet the minimum, but because that's running while you're doing some other stuff, so like, okay, the Premiere, or in my case, it would be like Camtasia will be rendering the video so I can actually upload it to YouTube, or I have Android Studio or Visual Studio compiling the code, and I'll be watching Netflix and some other stuff while it's doing that. So I'll be just sitting back waiting, or if I hang out at a computer. And basically what would happen is if my specs on my computer was to the minimum side, then I'll run into some problems because you can't do those extra things. And then even when you're able to do those, compiling, rendering, whatever, you will still run into some problems eventually. And that's more likely than not what's causing the issue. For a year old, I'll say that. There's also power issues, power management. So on some systems, it's controlled by operating system level. And then you can get some that's not. But since the laptop, it's obviously going to be controlled by operating system level, and really the times it's not a certain, server and stuff. So, or satellite, whatever, and you really want to run through it there. But basically, what would end up happening is you can have a hard drive, and its speed is like, say, this amount, just whatever, flow with it, and you don't have enough power, so its speed's now this amount. I hope that kind of clears things up. But basically, if there's not enough power going to some of these other areas, then you run some problems. Usually for laptops, that's not as much of an issue. That's more of custom built computers where I see that the most. But the way that you can look at that stuff is, and this goes into the operating system side of things, or the software side of things, is drivers. Make sure they're all up to date. So by making sure your drivers are up to date, it should take care of that, and also make sure that you don't have any programs on the computer itself that would tell it to slow down or to do whatever. That's one thing, and that's a big thing that I find with a lot of things is this service book right here. I first got it late last year, so 2015, real late last year, and basically there was a driver that was on it. I got it when the thing first came out. And the battery driver was back in 2013 or something, and there was drivers on it that aged back to 2005. So with updating that, my battery performance went from like 3 hours to I think 15 hours. My cooling became not a problem anymore, and so on and so on. And that's a big thing, is making sure your drivers are up to date, because it could be that. I doubt it's that in this person's case, because I've seen them on my stuff a little bit, and I know that they actually know about updating their drivers, making sure their operating system's up to date, make sure their software's up to date, making sure that they don't have too many programs running, but just covering the basics for everybody. But that's a big thing, is making sure that your stuff is up to date, and that way, if there is an actual problem, then that may fix it itself. So we got into programs. We got into some programs. One thing you got to look at is this goes into resource. So for those of you who don't know, resources, it's very crucial to understand. On computers, there is resources. So you got RAM, hard drive space, hard drive speed, processing, graphics, and so on. Well, what happens is, it's like us. We only have so many resources in our body to do something, and with that, like, we might be able to run, like, you might take someone and they'll run 10 miles, but they cannot run 11 miles. They simply don't have enough resources in them to do it. But if they had, enough salt and whatever into them to do it, then they might be able to run that 11th mile. Well, same thing happens with computers. And you may notice it where you have a program using something, and that's using some RAM, some hard drive space, and some other stuff. And basically, that means nothing else could be using that at the same time, and there's a limit. Now, was a finite limit? That's really questionable, depending on what exactly you're doing. So that's a big thing. And there's a finite limit. You can find out more for a computer. Like, it might have so and so gigabytes of RAM, so gigabytes or terabytes of hard drive space, and so on. But beyond that, speed and so on, these are things that you got to experiment with. So as far as the resource, you might have memory leaks in your programs, and the only way to fix that, it's sad but it's true, is report it to the developers and delete the program, or just not use the program. So Minecraft had a memory leak, and Chrome has problems out both ends, and it's not a hidden secret. Even Google knows it, and they've been trying to work on it for a while. You can't have something that's really like that and not having problems, unfortunately. But at least with our current knowledge of coding and whatnot. But basically, you can have programs that's using a ton of resources on purpose or not. And in many of these cases, it's not. And you don't know about them having these leaks and having these problems. And what would cause is entire system will slow down. Then if you got like customized software on your stuff, then that itself, you need to check into that. And you got to look into the what's leaking and what's not by using your resource monitors on your computer. being Linux, Windows, whatever. So, and Windows, for this person, I'm pretty sure that they know where to look, but it's Task Manager. There's resource monitors in there, performance monitors. Check out that. Don't know where on Apple's thing to look. I had enough time with that to say. In Linux, it really depends on which distribution you're going with, but they all have resource monitors. Now, as far as that goes, then even Android has a resource monitor. I'm not really sure if iPhones have it. Pretty sure they do. If they don't, it says a lot. So yeah. Let's see. The other thing is that so degradation. Let's get into that because I'm starting to get tired. Derogation, basically, you can have derogation that's causing problems. So there's something called EMI, and this is the streams, by the way. What I'm going to do is tackle the streams because there's only a handful of them. Then we're going to get down to real Earth, because some of these streams, when I worked around rockets and stuff, I never worked directly with satellites, but you had to have knowledge, go back and forth in case you had to. But basically, you had EMI, electromagnetic interference. You could have that on your device. If you're back in the 80s and 90s, that was a serious problem. Right now, not so much at all. But in space, that's more of a problem because you got cosmic, and then you got other things that can cause problems with degradation, radiation. It's ionized. I can't say the word. Is ionic radiation, which is basically the type that actually knocks atoms out. Two types of radiation. Ionic is the one that's going to have that problem. That's why X-rays. X-rays could cause problems with computers and stuff, as far as, if it runs through so many X-ray machines, then yeah, it could actually have a problem. But you're really sending it through an X-ray machine every few seconds if you're really going to test that one out. So realistically, that's probably not a problem down here on Earth. But you have things like that. And then in space, you have extreme heating and cooling. Here on Earth, you'll have that too. I doubt with this particular person that's the case, but say if you're in a work environment or you're dealing with military equipment, if you're, for those of you who don't know about thermodynamics and material science and metallurgy, which is science of metal and how metal works into different types. I hated that class, by the way, but I got certifications and stuff in that. Basically, with thermodynamics is and materials is when things heat up, they expand, right? And when they cool, they contract. So when you have things expanding, cooling, expanding, cooling, expanding, cooling, eventually it's going to form microscopic cracks. And these in itself could cause problems in the degradation in the systems. You won't be able, obviously, you won't be able to see with your eyes. And even if you could, you could probably skip it fairly easy. And then you keep going with expanding, cooling, and you can form actual cracks. And then you keep doing it, and it'll break. Realistically, that wouldn't happen because that's more of a space thing where you're going from 200 degrees to negatives to back and forth. So realistically, that's more to the extremes. But if you're doing in a production environment, if you're having a computer or some tablet or whatever in a production environment on a machine that's causing that type of heat and cooling, then that can cause problems. But you'll also have other problems, metal whiskers and some other things. In space, and also here on Earth, it's not as much of a problem here on Earth. I don't understand much of it, and in fact, no one on Earth understands a lot about metal whiskers. But basically, it's where the metals, look it up, but that will cause shorting and stuff. That's more of a problem in stuff like space. So I mean, you get extremes like that, but again, I can guarantee you won't run into that problem here on Earth with your computer. But again, since this video could apply to anyone, and you might be wondering, okay, well, why is your thing that's connected to some futuristic machine having problems? I don't know, maybe that'll help you. So let's get into real world stuff. The heating and cooling can cause problems, but it's more the heating side that causes more problems. So again, realistically, having something that's heating, cooling, and we're talking about within hours of heating and cooling, not days, then what's really going to end up happening is if you're doing something like that, you're going to run some problems with the devices, but the heating side of it will damage it a bit more. It will actually degrade the chips and stuff a bit more. It will degrade some of the other stuff a bit more. Without getting into much of the science behind it, it's let's say that you're in a dusty environment. There, cat hair, whatever. I don't know, but just make up your own scenario. The stuff can actually bypass the fans, so it won't clog up the fans itself, but it will collect around some chips and stuff, and that will cause insulation, which will cause problems. But realistically, and you'll see that on desktops. So that is an actual thing that happens on desktops. Laptops, it could happen, but it's not as likely. On other things, not so much. It's a lot of this stuff is going away from fans, by the way. So soon enough, that's going to be obsolete. Probably about 20 years or so, because they're starting to use on boats. What's happening? And I'm going off track a little. But on boats, what's happening is they have a full enclosure computer. It uses the case itself as a heat sink, and you'll see it in some other places. But basically, you don't want water in it, and you don't want salt air in it, and you don't want all this other stuff in it. But by the way, that atmosphere, salt air and stuff, that can cause problems. You don't want this stuff in it or around it. So you have it completely sealed. And what would end up happening is you don't have to worry about a fan anymore. Right now, it costs too much for an average person to have that. Again, it's made mostly for boats. When we're talking about cargo ships and stuff of that nature, or Navy ships. But we're not talking about something that you just pick up, you go down the street and buy a boat. Another thing with heating is, and you'll see this with GPSs a lot, is sun. So if it heats up, start running to some serious damage, And since a lot of people keep their GPSs in their windshield area, then what would end up happening is over a time, 6-month period, you'll start seeing the GPS start messing up. And I've seen them within a while, a year, they end up skipping and starting problems, actually having the audio messing up on it, and that's sun damage. That's the major of it is sun damage. So that's a big thing. Some other degradation that can cause problems is vibrations. On space stuff, they use, and also a lot of other areas, you use vibration tables. I don't know of too many instances where an average person may run into this. Maybe a motorcycle. So maybe if the laptop is near the engine of a motorcycle, maybe if the laptop is in a small aircraft or helicopter all the time, maybe if the person has a laptop with them on in a tractor, like a farm tractor. I really can't think of too many other. I wouldn't say a boat. And I can't really think of too many other scenarios where that you'll get enough vibration that could theoretically cause problems, even to a small degree. But there could be, like you might be able to think of some. So if you keep it on top of a washing machine or something like that, maybe. I honestly can't really think of too many. So, what else can cause degradation? So we got heating, vibration, battery, that can cause it. So not having enough power to stuff can cause degradation. I don't know if the laptop was refurbished. So one of the biggest, I don't know why, but I pretty much stopped buying refurbished stuff, given its electronics. If it's a monitor, that's one thing, but I basically gotten away from buying refurbished things like phones and whatnot, because what I found is more than not is there's problems with refurbished things, like used and abused. If the laptop's then over the past year, then like thrown as a frisbee or beaten up on or whatever, that could theoretically cause problems. And a lot of this could be fixed, but you got to have some insight on motherboard repair and some other stuff. So we're talking about degradation about that point. And you might have degradation in the hard drive itself. If it's a hard drive, if it's a solid state, then it'd be a little bit less of a chance that a lot of these things can cause problems. I don't know. But more than not, was probably causing, for that particular one, what's probably causing issues with the degradation or the performance decrease is software related programs. So if memory leaks, programs, like too many programs, things of this nature, bad programs on it to start with, not viruses, but things like major companies take care of their programs, but if it's like something lightweight, beta or something like that, you'll run some problems where it can start affecting other programs. Stuff like that. That's a big thing that you gotta watch out for. That's a big thing. Yeah, well, it's pretty simple. Buy a new computer, or better yet, if you find out it's some resource problem, then figure out if you need the programs, or you can up your resources. Like say for example, if I wanted to use the Oculus, a Macintosh or a Thinnic Macintosh, I can't do it because it doesn't have enough resources. Let's say it's some degradation. You may be able to fix it by just changing out parts. So say it's has more chance of being in the hard drive, some type of degradation there. So if you got that, then you might be able wanted to check the hard drive speed and see if there's any errors that comes up with your hard drive, or see if there's any errors that come up with your battery. Those are the big things. If it's a third-party battery, it might be that. But beyond that, you have to replace the device. And that's the unfortunate thing is unless if you got ability to fix motherboards, and watch a channel. I'm going to link it below. Rossmann. He does motherboard repair, and you can see easily why I don't even touch that with a 10-foot pole. The fact of the matter is that stuff. It's not the fact that it's difficult. It's tedious, and you got to have a lot of patience to find a problem and then fix the problem, and so on. And in some cases, you got to have some type of skill. You have to know how hard is too hard scratching something. You got to have soldering skill, which would be too hard. But when I was in doing electrical engineering stuff for getting my aerospace degree, I was part of it. People around me, they sucked at soldering. Not all of them. There's a few of them. But what I found is you take a solder sucker and you're doing solder, and you almost need three hands, but you heat it up at the same time. So I'll hold the solder and solder sucker and feed it with my pinky going down, and I will solder the thing, have the solder, and then I'll use a solder sucker to suck up the stuff, and I'll even use a sucked up solder to put it in some places that's needed, or I'll have a thing to the side and just knock that off. Yes, that's I had perfect solders each time because of that. It's because I learned that most people can't or won't do that. So, and a lot of people have bubbles in their solder, which here on Earth it's not a problem, but because we're doing aerospace stuff, if you got any bubble within your solder, once it goes into a vacuum, it explodes. The actual solder itself actually explodes. So you don't want that, obviously. So as far as any questions or anything, I know it didn't really get too much into how to fix it, but the answer is so varied that it's very difficult to pinpoint how to fix this particular problem. On a one-on-one basis, I could probably say it's that, which I don't do one-on-one basis, legality and whatnot. But if you actually figure out exactly what it is, it's you can say what software is causing the problem, and if you can up the resources, and that's really what all you can do in the real world. But anyways, as far as that goes, this has been Craig Bennett, and hopefully you found this useful. If not, then not. Check out the Patreon, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day.